This is a podcast or something like that. Hello and welcome to the Verbal Journal. Yes. Wow, the crowd is absolutely going wild, clapping very rhythmically. There appears to be one person. Hello? Yep. Hello, sir? Ma'am? Who is that? Who the fuck is clapping still? This is a problem. This could go for quite a long... Oh my god, it's speeding up also. Who is that? Ah! Okay. Yeah, we were told by the producers we had to start with more action-packed sequences. So that was one. It was called The Person in the Distance, Clapping for Whom the Bell Claps. And, okay, so today we're going to jump right into it. It's a little bit earlier than last week. We're starting Verbal Journal episode 26, and it is time to get going. Let's go. I was a little rushed at the end last week. I said that's not going to happen again. I'm going to start hours earlier, make sure we have plenty of time. Also, we're going to do, guess what? A shorter episode, hopefully. Everybody's pumped about that. We might do a little bit of a shorter episode. I say that now, but who fucking knows? What I do know for sure is it is episode 2 of the... it is part 2 of the news episode. Okay? So, last week we were looking at some news articles, and this week we're going to be looking at some more news articles, because guess what? I've been told that I don't read the news enough. I get a lot of comments saying I don't read the news enough. I'm very uninformed. Some people say ignorant. Some people say ugly, which is a totally separate point. And I honestly don't even know why that would be referenced in the same conversation. But yeah, you all don't read the news enough is apparently true, and I don't read the news enough. So, and part of that is that the news is very unpleasant to read a lot of the time. Not just that it's reporting bad things, but it really is. It's hard to come away from the news with the sort of coherent, like, total perspective that you need to process bad information. I don't know. I'm just kind of riffing, but like a lot of news articles, not that they need to leave you on an uplifting note, but like you do have to kind of situate bad things within your perspective to try to make sense of them. And it is hard when news comes at it from different perspectives or, obviously biased perspective sometimes. But hopefully we'll find some articles that I do actually like reading, and like we did last week, stuff that's very interesting. I'll start by saying one thing that I've been doing this past week. I think I started on Sunday night, like after, hours after recording the previous episode. I stumbled across... here's what it was. Right. So I said on the podcast last week, one of the things I mentioned was... I think it was when we were talking about the news article about the FBI tracking black activists and labeling them as high security threats or high threats or whatever through a firm that they hired. Basically, FBI hiring a firm that had previously labeled these famous black activists as high-level security threats, and the FBI sort of being into that. At some point, I made a comment about the FBI killing Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And, after I recorded and after I uploaded the podcast, I was like, I think I've read that. I should probably double check that because I said that very confidently, and I'm pretty sure I've read that. So that led me down the process of, looking into it, and I found an article that then led me to a full transcript of the 1999 conspiracy trial that Coretta Scott King was a plaintiff for, along with others, against, what's the guy's name? Lloyd Jowers. It's the complete transcript of the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination conspiracy trial. This is from late 1999. And I literally spent hours. So yeah, it's the family of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Bringing a case against a man who owned a building and a business across the street from the hotel where Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered. And this man was not involved on a high level, but he was involved on a low level. And he allowed his space to be used, and he transferred a gun to the people who, or he took the gun from the people who killed Martin Luther King Jr. and hid it. And he did all these other things to let people use his home to kill Dr. Martin Luther King. And part of what you read here, not his home, I'm sorry, his business. And literally, I spent hours reading these cross-examinations with, he hasn't even come up yet. He's probably at the end. But like, I've read these cross-examinations with these cops and even like firefighters in Memphis who, and you get this whole story of how they were actually very much coordinating and involved in the process of killing Martin Luther King Jr. To the point where the cops were spying on the hotel where Martin Luther King Jr. was residing and having meetings, and in leading up to the another march in Memphis, I believe. And even like the two black people who worked at the fire station were assigned to a different fire station that night because I think the fire station was right nearby the hotel too. And that was where the cops were spying on Martin Luther King and presumably communicating that information to someone. I haven't gotten the full story yet. I'm only like halfway through. Also, it's the mafia is heavily involved. There's a specific guy in the mafia who's specifically involved who Frank what's the guy's name? I don't know. Frank Liberto or something, I believe is his name. And there's literally testimony from people who heard this guy bragging specifically, and not even heard him, and then talked to him about it, how he was responsible for coordinating it. And he was not the originator of the idea, I don't believe. And there were actually federal government people involved. So yeah, I did just want to say I spent hours reading this. I really encourage you, if you're interested in legal stuff, to look up the full, complete transcript of the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination conspiracy trial from 1999. I do know how it ended, and it ended with the plaintiffs, the King family, winning and proving in court not just that this guy was involved, but the entire story around this guy being involved. And that's why they finally brought it to trial 32 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered. I also learned in the process of Coretta Scott King's testimony and cross-examination that, and I probably should have known this from my history classes or whatever, but like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. actually was thinking about running for political office sort of for the first time. He had come out against the Vietnam War not too long before. So interesting to learn about the factors at play there. So that was a little follow-up there. Now let's get into other news and more current news. So here we have from The Guardian, people need to be riled up. Meteorologist names U.S. heat waves after oil and gas giants. So this is an article from a few days ago. It's about what it sounds like. So yeah, I guess trigger warning. Not everyone wants to hear about this stuff. Should I talk a little about myself first in my week before I go into this stuff? I probably should. Let me think about that. I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I've been having a good weekend. It's been chill. I hung out with friends a little bit. I did my own thing a bit yesterday. I've been doing a lot of reading and writing. I did a live stream yesterday on Twitch. I watched Dr. Todd Grande videos that are really messed up and just confusing, and I'm going to edit those and upload those to the side channel. I've been painting a lot. I have a lot of oil paintings drying in whatever room I am not in my apartment, and they have to move back and forth. My job is going good. I'm seeing a lot of clients. I am sort of wondering. I think I might have to find a new office because I want one with a little bit better noise control. Like make sure that sound doesn't get in or out of my office a little bit better. I think the office I'm in is not really ideal. I think it's been a good holdover. I think it's not ideal. It's a little bit annoying to have to think about, but sometimes in life you have to do these things. You do just have to deal with problems. And so at the end of the day, I'm gonna meet with the office manager next week, see if there's a better office in the building for me, or if I need to find a new building. And that's gonna just cost a little bit more, and also be. I have to, I work with I don't even 6 insurance companies. I don't even know if I technically broke it down because there's all these affiliates and subsidiaries. But I work with 6 insurance companies or something. So I have to I guess, yeah, I think I have to let them each know. I forget what I did when I got this office. I have to remember. I think I have to let them each know. There's also a sort of a one form thing I can do that lets them know. But I think I have to also let them know. It's not like it. Yeah, I definitely have to also let them know. But I shouldn't build it up too much because I remember I built this up when I was getting an in-person office for the first time in the pandemic. And it was it really wasn't that big of a deal. It's a few hours of emails and calls at the most. And you get it done. And now you have this new location. And yeah, I mean, telling all the clients is a process, but that's, I come up with a form, I email them out. It's not a big deal. It's really not the end of the world. And at the end of the day, I need to have a good situation. So a little bit of flux there. But yeah, on the creative side, I mean, I haven't really been working much on video stuff. I definitely have not jumped into a new series to watch or anything like that. I am really enjoying working on some other stuff creatively. Paintings and music, of course, but then also a piece of writing about relationships that I've mentioned and trying to break that down. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. And I did a little research this weekend by sort of just going to the library and looking at some books about relationships, just seeing whatever they had. I'm particularly interested in, just for some background stuff, in how people just define healthy relationships. But what people's definition of that is. So yeah, feel free to write into verbaljournalpodcast@gmail.com if you have a definition of what makes a relationship a healthy relationship. A second question that I want to look into is, what is the difference between needs and wants? How do you describe the difference between needs and wants? Okay, so trigger warning for upsetting news about the climate. So this article about is in The Guardian about meteorologists naming U.S. heat waves after oil giants, oil and gas companies. That sounds like a space thing, oil giants. It's oh my God, these oil giants. The summer's heat waves have been so blistering that they have inspired their own names. In Europe, they have been called nightmarish figures from Greek mythology, but one meteorologist in the U.S. has taken a more pointed approach by naming the country's heat waves after the oil and gas companies that have worsened the climate crisis. The heat wave that has baked much of the U.S. Southwest in recent weeks, helping bring a record-breaking string of days over 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 43 degrees Celsius to Phoenix, has been named Heatwave Chevron by Guy Walton, a veteran former Weather Channel meteorologist. Walton, who now runs a blog on weather and as well as writing a range of children's books he calls Harry Potter Meets the Climate Crisis, okay, I might want to start calling it something else, has already christened 2 previous heat waves. It'd be funny if he's just really transphobic and that's why he calls it that. He's just self-aware. He's yeah, no, I'm very transphobic, sort of like J.K. Rowling. So I want to, yeah. Yeah. So this is an interesting article. So he's doing that. Walton has devised his own criteria for named heat waves in the U.S. based on duration and extremity on a 1 to 5 scale, similar to hurricanes. Heat wave Chevron. Yeah, why don't we have that for heat waves? Heat wave Chevron is classified as a 4 and is historic, Walton said. The meteorologist said he has a list of 20 oil and gas companies, including Exxon and Shell, for upcoming heat waves and will turn to coal companies if he runs out of names. It's a little tongue-in-cheek, he says, but it's not a fun topic. I want to galvanize the way the public thinks about these threats, said Walton, who previously named heat waves after dragons. A heat wave in Europe blamed for 60,000 deaths last year was named Smog after the antagonist in J.R.R. Tolkien's novel The Hobbit. Oh my lord. I mean, I know it's just names, but that is so inappropriate. And if you think the ruling class doesn't have an opinion about this, the ruling class wants us to call it smog. Smog. It's funny from a climate perspective. I don't know if that's how you pronounce the antagonist in The Hobbit. I didn't see that book. I never saw that book with my eyes. I never read it. I never read the movie either. But yeah, so I just think, when something is extremely damaging, you probably shouldn't give it like a fictionalized version. You should probably just face what it is. I think calling it the name of a company is fine. Yeah. Okay. Next up, this is a Twitter news update. It says Sega of America workers won their union vote today with 91 votes yes and 26 votes no. Several votes were challenged and not counted. Significant win for the union movement in games and the first major company to include roles across the company in its union. That's great. Yeah, you do want as many varied roles in your union as possible. Okay. Cool. That's a short one. Next up, we got another news insight. And this is from ProPublica.org. How LA failed to stop landlords from turning low-cost housing into tourist hotels from about 2 weeks ago. By law, the American Hotel in downtown Los Angeles is supposed to be reserved for residents who can't afford to live anywhere else. For decades, the building was a haven in the city's sky-high housing market where artists, musicians, and people down on their luck could rent rooms for about $500 a month. At the end of the day, longtime tenants would hang out at Al's Bar, a legendary punk and alternative rock venue on the ground floor where bands like the Red Hot Chili Peppers played long before they sold out stadiums. But amid the largest homelessness crisis in the nation, the American's owner has turned the building into a boutique hotel where tourists can book rooms for as much as $209 a night. And the city has done nothing to stop him. Long before LA Mayor Karen Bass declared a housing emergency last year, city officials recognized that affordable housing was vanishing and sought to address it by making it difficult for developers to scoop up the residential hotels, whose single-room dwellings were the only places many people could afford. Interesting. But where are people supposed to live when there's no affordable housing, I guess is the question. Under the law, Verge was required to compensate the city for the loss of affordable housing by either building replacement units or paying into a fund for housing construction. In Verge's case, that could have cost more than $10 million. But like many landlords, Verge did neither of these things, and the city housing department didn't compel him to, even though the law provides for $250 per day fines and jail time for violators. See, that's the thing. Like, my feelings about the incarceration and like the sort of like punitive system in the U.S. is obviously that it needs to be more restorative. And at the same time, when you have a legal framework and when you have sort of rules and boundaries in place, they need to be enforced, or else they're completely meaningless. Like, I don't care how it's enforced. So apparently, yeah. None of the 21 hotels, including the American, have received clearances from the city that would indicate that they've replaced the low-cost housing that they've taken off the market. Wow. Oh my God, man. People are struggling. Everyone's struggling. People are fucking struggling, yo. Okay. Next up, ESPN story about Caster Semenya. Caster Semenya is a champion runner. And she is a woman. And she is famous for having naturally high hormone levels that she's now being oppressed for having. Basically, she's being punished for having naturally high, or she's being punished for having high testosterone levels. And it's fascinating to think about something like this. And if you're not aware of like the various ways that transphobia, if you need to understand how transphobia affects cis people to like, get on board and care, like this is a way you can get on board. It does. I mean, I shouldn't be so snarky because like it's important to always understand that with any forms of oppression, it affects everyone, like first they came for the socialists type of thing. So if you think that like strict gender binaries that are causing violence against trans people are not also causing violence against cis people, it's just a misunderstanding. What I found most fascinating about this, champion runner Caster Semenya won a potentially landmark legal victory Tuesday, a few weeks ago, when the European Court of Human Rights decided she was discriminated against by sports rules that force her to medically reduce her natural hormone levels to compete in major competitions. The ruling by the Strasbourg, France-based court questioned the validity of the contentious international athletics regulations in that they infringed Semenya's human rights. But the two-time Olympic champion's first legal success after two failed appeals in sport's highest court and the Swiss Supreme Court came with a major caveat. Amid her bid to be allowed to run again without restriction and go for another gold in next year's Olympics in Paris, Tuesday's judgment, while major, did not immediately result in the rules being dropped. That might still take years. The South African athlete's challenge against the testosterone rules began in 2018. Wow. Semenya, who is 32 and has been barred by the rules from running in her favorite 800-meter race since 2019 and has lost 4 years of her career at her peak, has only 13 months until Paris, the Olympics. In a statement soon after the European Rights Court's decision was published, World Athletics showed no sign of budging and said its rules would, quote, remain in place. You know what's most interesting about this? Let me find the quote. Quote, there are no testosterone limits in place for male athletes. I wonder if there are estrogen limits in place for male athletes. There are no testosterone limits in place for male athletes. There are only testosterone limits in place for women. Semenya was identified as female at birth, was raised as a girl, and has been legally identified as female her whole life. She is one of a number of conditions known as differences in sex development, which cause naturally high testosterone that is in the typical male range. Semenya says her high natural testosterone should be considered a genetic gift in the same way a basketballer's height or a swimmer's long arms. Yeah, that's an extremely, extremely obvious argument, and very obvious. Wow. I mean, it's just absolutely absurd. I mean, literally, the track authorities are not like the idea that testosterone would be a problem, like the amount of testosterone would be a problem for a woman but not a man is fucking bizarre. And I feel like it goes to the second sex idea, like the idea of women being viewed as like not men. Like men are viewed in this like sort of in the status quo of like our socially constructed ideas about gender relations and in the historical way that genders have interacted with each other. Men are viewed as like the natural, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like default sex. And so like whatever we have going on with our hormones, it's just like, okay, that's fine. And then, but women need to have their hormones strictly controlled in this sort of like, in this sort of hierarchy of control. Wow. The court also found for Semenya on another point of her appeal that she wasn't given, quote, effective remedy against that discrimination when the Court of Arbitration for Sports and the Swiss Supreme Court both denied her appeals. Yeah. Wow. Unbelievable. Okay. Wow. The European Rights Court also found that Semenya's second legal appeal against the rules at the Swiss Supreme Court should have led to, quote, a thorough institutional and procedural review of the rules, but that did not happen. The rules have been made stricter since Semenya launched her case at the European Rights Court, with World Athletics announcing in March that athletes would have to reduce their testosterone level to an even lower mark. The updated regulations also apply to every event and not just to Semenya's favored range between 400 meters and 1 mile as they did previously. Semenya won gold in the 800 meters at the 2012 and 2016 Olympics, but was prevented from defending her title at the Tokyo Olympics in 2021 because of the regulations. And one point I just want to add really quick. I don't want to overlook this. Caster Semenya is a black woman, and if you think there's not a racist side of this, you're absolutely wrong. The idea that she's less feminine, the idea that she's less of a woman, I don't know that this would be imposed on a white person in the same way. It feels racist. But it's also completely transphobic and completely bigoted in every way to say that there's a legal limit to how much testosterone you can have in your fucking body before like they're gonna tell you what gender you are. Unbelievable. But God forbid that she runs in the fucking races that she's good at, right? That would be so bad for competition and for everything. So no testosterone limits for male athletes. Very interesting. Okay. Here in my notes, I put trigger warning again for this next one, but I hope, oh yeah, because it's climate crisis. The trigger warning from the beginning applies to everything. This one is humanity faces quote, oh yeah, because it's about suicide. Collective suicide over climate crisis, warns UN chief. So I think the UN chief, Antonio Guterres, calling the climate crisis, quote, humanity facing a, quote, collective suicide, I do think that's a good way to frame it. I do, as a therapist and just as a person, I do think it's very reasonable to compare the climate crisis to suicide. It's a little bit, it's not like we're all involved in that decision, but you have to acknowledge, like, humanity as a whole does know what it's doing to itself right now. I guess it's actually different from suicide because I think a big factor is like it's not that people want their life to end. It's not that people want their existence to end. It's that they don't care about other people's existences as much. So it is actually very different now that I sort of break that down a little bit. But the UN leader said half of humanity is in the danger zone from floods, droughts, extreme storms, and wildfires. No nation is immune, yet we continue to feed our fossil fuel addiction. I totally agree. I think addiction is a good way to see fossil fuel. Wow, when you highlight on The Guardian, it's yellow. I like that. I will just say also, I like the UN. I know that there are many criticisms of it. I know that, you know, it's structured in such a way that the powerful countries maintain power. I don't like all the bad things about the UN, but I do like the good things about the UN, and I am brave enough to come out and say that. So yeah, wildfires raged at the weekend because I believe. Wait, that's a typo. Wildfires raged at the weekend across Europe and North America. Okay, The Guardian, get your shit together. I do like because at the end of the day, you know, if you feel the way I do about unions, if you feel the way I do about a lot of things, it's like, what the fuck are the countries supposed to do? Obviously, there has to be an organization that, you know, gets together. There has to be an international criminal court. There has to be a UN. Obviously, it has to be structured differently so that the powerful countries don't get all the control. I mean, I just like, I don't know, y'all. I mean, it's just, it is very depressing, and it is totally understandable to have climate stress and anxiety. It's like, it's a huge problem that hangs over all of our heads, and it is so indicative of how the ruling class does not take responsibility for the effects of their actions. It's fucking abysmal. Okay, so next article up. We are making great time through the news episode. This is great. It's such a weird podcast idea. Like, who the fuck would do this? Like, who wants to listen to this? Are you enjoying this? Okay, next article. 27% of jobs at high risk from AI revolution. This is from a few weeks ago. More than a quarter of jobs in the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, a 38-member bloc, a 38-country bloc. So more than a quarter of jobs in these countries rely on skills that could be easily automated in the coming artificial intelligence revolution, and workers fear they could lose their jobs to AI. Jobs with the highest risk of being automated make up 27% of the labor force on average in OECD countries, with Eastern European countries most exposed. Jobs at highest risk were defined as those using more than 25 of the 100 skills and abilities that AI experts consider to be easily automated. The survey covered 5,300 workers in 2,000 firms spanning manufacturing and finance. The survey was carried out before the explosive emergence of generative AI like ChatGPT. Wow. Interesting. So in the United States where I live, it says 21% of jobs are at risk of automation, and that's probably a low end. So you do have to wonder, like, what are all those people going to do? And this just happens a lot. And, a lot of people think, well, everybody always, stresses out about technological change kicking people out of jobs, but it always increases jobs. And I think that's too much of a macro level view. I don't think creating jobs or deleting jobs is a problem. I think changing the market for what jobs are out there, changing the job market so that workers have even less power, have even less to say, here, I offer this, It's going to be even more of what is referred to as, what's it called? An industrial laboring, what's it fucking called, man? Oh, Industrial Reserve Army. Yeah, Industrial Reserve Army. So you just have to, you have to think like all these people will still be working. It's just shittier jobs with less, control and less say. And yeah, that's often how it goes. I'm not trying to be a doomsayer, but that's often how it goes. Like the jobs you have some skills for, then you don't get to do those. And now you're just kind of dependent. Like you're already dependent on anyone to pay your wage. Now you're even more dependent on a job with less skills for that wage that even anyone could do more. And then, it's just like we're more and more dependent. We're so dependent on what jobs are out there. And so it's not, I don't know. It's very, very, it is very scary. And like, as a therapist, I'm not scared about it. I think AI therapy is definitely becoming more and more of a thing, but I think I'm worried about that on more of a macro level. I'm not worried about how that affects me personally. I'm worried about the opportunity cost and the neoliberal sort of like dystopia of people not having access to healthcare. And so they use apps and stuff like that. Okay, well, next up, another Reuters article. J&J must pay $18.8 million to California cancer patient in baby powder suit. This is from a week ago. Johnson & Johnson must pay $18.8 million to a California man who said he developed cancer from exposure to its baby powder, a jury decided on Tuesday, a setback for the company as it seeks to settle thousands of similar cases over its talc-based products in U.S. bankruptcy court. The 24-year-old Hernandez said he developed mesothelioma, a deadly cancer in the tissue around his heart as a result of the heavy exposure to the company's talc since childhood. Wow. The 6-week trial was the first over talc that New Brunswick, New Jersey-based J&J has faced in almost 2 years. Wow. Unbelievable. Wow. Hernandez, wow. I mean, it's tens of thousands of plaintiffs have sued alleging that J&J's baby powder and other talc products sometimes contained asbestos and caused ovarian cancer and mesothelioma. Wow. J&J subsidiary LTL Management in April filed for bankruptcy in Trenton, New Jersey, proposing to pay $8.9 billion to settle more than 38,000 lawsuits and prevent new cases from coming forward. Wow. People are seeking to have that bankruptcy filing dismissed. It was brought in bad faith, some people say, to insulate the company from litigation. No. Okay, next article. This is the last one of the news episode. Another Guardian episode revealed Metropolitan Police shared sensitive data about crime victims with Facebook. This is from a week ago. Britain's biggest police force gathered sensitive data about people using its website to report sexual offenses, domestic abuse, and other crimes, and shared it with Facebook for targeted advertising, the Observer has found. The data was collected by a tracking tool embedded in the website of the Metropolitan Police and included records of browsing activity about people using a, quote, secure online form for victims and witnesses to report offenses. This is fucking disgusting. I'm actually viscerally disgusted. In one case, Facebook reviewed a parcel of data when someone clicked a link to, quote, securely and confidentially report rape or sexual assault to the Met Online. This included the sexual nature of the offense being reported, the time the page was viewed, and a code denoting the person's Facebook account ID. The tracking tool known as Metapixel also sent details to Facebook about content viewed and buttons clicked on web pages linked to contacting police, accessing victim services, and advice pages for crimes including rape, assaults, stalking, and fraud. I want to be clear. I'm not sharing this with anyone. I don't want anyone hearing this to think that this should influence them to not come forward about assault they've experienced. I mean, that's a very personal decision. I'm not going to tell anyone what to do in that regard. But obviously, that's not what I'm sharing about this. It is a huge issue to have data be insecure like this, and it's worth never trusting the cops. But at the same time, sometimes you do have to report something if you've been hurt. And I would never try to influence people to not do that. When confronted with the Observer's findings last week, the Met removed the Metapixel tracker from its website. It said it took, quote, issues of this kind seriously and was investigating, adding that no personal data, quote, inputted by people reporting crimes, such as their actual messages to police, had been shared. Okay, that's not the fucking point. It suggested that the data transmission had occurred by accident and that it had installed the tracking tool to help it serve ads to people, quote, who have indicated an interest in a career at the Met. Oh my fucking God, dude. It added, quote, a metapixel was placed on the Met website in June 2023 relating to a recruitment marketing campaign, and we are taking steps to remove pixels from any non-recruitment specific pages to avoid unnecessary concern. I think it's actually necessary concern. The use of the pixel by the Met was uncovered during an observer analysis of police websites in England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. The testing last week found 4 police forces using the tool, including the Met. The others were police Scotland, Norfolk Constabulary. What the fuck they name their Norfolk Constabulary, Norfolk Constabulary, Constabular. I'm adding an L. Constabulary. Constabulary, Norfolk Constabulary, and Suffolk Constabulary. God damn it. Wow. Like the Met, Norfolk and Suffolk were found to have shared data about people accessing sensitive web pages. This included when web visitors clicked links to report antisocial behavior, domestic abuse, rape, hate crime, and corruption, as well as when they clicked to view a page titled Tell Us Something Anonymously. In a joint statement, Norfolk and Suffolk police said they had been using the tracking tools, quote, for recruitment purposes, quote, however, recognizing the wider implications, we have taken immediate steps to remove the relevant... Okay, wow, they can recognize implications of their actions when it's brought to their attention from the Guardian. Oh my lord. I wonder if they could do it before, maybe. Mark Richards, an online privacy researcher, said use of the advertising pixels in this context was, quote, like asking someone to report a crime while a stranger is in the room. Wow. Professor David Leslie, director of ethics at the Alan Turing Institute, said the data sharing seemed, quote, reckless and that people appeared to have been given, quote, partial or, quote, misleading information about how their web browsing data would be used. Wow. But yeah, right now, so last week we talked about third-party vendors sharing information with the police and the government, and today we talk about the government sharing information with third-party vendors. All right, we are done with the news segment. 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 Okay, good comment of the week. The good comment of the week on part 1 of the Better Call Saul series. It's always nice to get a comment on part 1. This person said, okay, if you watched Mr. Show, you know what you're talking about. I love that. Yeah. I mean, that is why I got into Better Call Saul, because I just like Bob Odenkirk, you know. So I like that someone appreciates that. And I don't have a misunderstanding comment of the week. I don't have any bad negative comments to share. So, yeah. I mean, I think I might have gotten a few, but they weren't interesting enough to share. One interesting thing from my life I wanted to talk about, this was kind of interesting. It just made me think of Better Call Saul. I was walking home from work and I passed a few folks that may be unhoused and maybe addicted to drugs or heroin. They seemed like they were in a tough spot. And I, try to make time to chat with people when I can and give a few bucks when I can. So there were like 5 of them or 6 of them, and I gave, I just stopped and I gave a few bucks, not enough money for 6 people, not enough money for one person even, but I just gave a few bucks, and then I was just chatting with them, and they were, they were in a really tough spot, and they were talking about some stuff they were going through. But they seemed like really friendly and like, like personable. And I obviously I used to work at a rehab. Like I like people, and I could tell that they were like mostly like really had good character, like a lot of people dealing with addiction, and they're just like struggling with a disease. And so I was just chatting with them, not about addiction or anything. And they get to asking what I do, and I'm like, oh yeah, I do social work, and I'm talking about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I do therapy, and then I'm like, yeah, I do that. And so they ask if I could be their therapist. And I was like, oh, no, I mean, I think, and I'm telling them like how I think they could find someone a few different ways. And I'm like, no, I don't have like, I don't want to add a bunch of clients right now. But I didn't really have a great excuse. I just like, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be like appropriate to just like that's sort of soliciting, and it just immediately made me think of the Magic Man Saul Goodman stuff, like where he goes out and just like hangs out with all kinds of people on the street and then gets them to be his clients. That's basically the situation I was in. Like if I wanted to, I could have been like, okay, all five of you like meet me at my office this time, and you'll become my clients. And like that's not purely bad, but like yeah, it does feel like soliciting is not cool. And I'm not, mostly it's just that I'm not looking to add like 6 clients at once. It's just a lot of work to your schedule, and I don't even literally have the time. But it's funny. Like they were legit like they were legit. Like I was like, oh, yeah, I don't have that much room. And they were legit. Like there's not that many of us, and like, why not and stuff. I was like, what? I honestly felt like I wasn't sure whether they actually wanted therapy that much, or were just like kind of just like seeing if they could get me to agree or something. But I was like, oh, like whatever. But I was definitely giving them my advice about like, how to get on insurance, how to get therapy and stuff like that. To the point where like I didn't bring it up, but at a certain point I'm like, okay, I've been going on about this too long. Okay, so that was my Magic Man Saul Goodman moment, my potential Saul Goodman moment. Chess segment for the week. So the chess update is actually big. So the Women's World Chess Championship just finished yesterday. And it was Lei Tingzhe against Zhu Wenjun, who's the defending champion. And they were both from China. And Zhu Wenjun won in the last game. And I watched a lot of it. I was flipping through it. I watched a lot of it. It was an absolutely remarkable game. She is unbelievably good. It's her fourth. She's now 4-time Women's World Chess Champion. One of the greatest players alive, and just masterful. She went down the exchange. She gave up a rook for 2 minor pieces, and she gave up a rook and a pawn for 2 minor pieces in a very interesting way, which did not give her an advantage. It was just an imbalanced equal position. And then so she's playing with like 3 minor pieces against against 2 rooks, but she's sort of got the initiative. She does a lot of very tricky knight moves, and she holds it all together and wins in the last classical game, in the last long game of the 12-game match or something. Absolutely fascinating. Really great stuff. So congratulations to Zhu Wenjun. She's an absolute legend. I thought she was like at Oxford or something and like taking time off from chess, but maybe she graduated or I don't know. Okay, and next up, this is my fantasy baseball league. So I did win last week. That's the great update. I did end up winning against one of the top people in the league, and then this week I'm just decimated. Like it's not even close. I'm just fucking decimated. They have about double the points I have. There's literally no chance in hell. So that's sad there. I think I definitely will not make the playoffs in this fantasy league, but that's okay. I did well. I'm 6-8. I'm going to be 6-9. Nice. But it still won't make the playoffs. Okay. Screen time report. So I believe last week I didn't go over my screen time report, but I believe I read it out and it was 8 minutes less than the previous week, which is funny because this week I've been using my phone for 8 minutes more than last week. So daily average screen time, 55 minutes a day on my phone, which is a lot, but a lot of that is like YouTube videos just playing, and I just didn't feel like pulling it up on a different device. And then it's the Messages app and the Chess app. I did do a bit more chess on my phone this past week, but yeah, watch some videos as well. And for the final segment of the day and the week and the month, is that true? 30 days, September, April, June. No, I will have one more July verb journ, unless I have something going on next weekend. I don't think so. let's check out the mailbag before we go. I have plenty of time for the mailbag now. Plenty of time. Last week I was kind of rushed. I got plenty of time. And Simply Snaps wrote in again. Yay. Thank you, Simply Snaps. Snap says, an easier question. Thank you. Okay. Hello, Mr. Therapy. I have a much less stressful question this week. Last week, I asked a super deep question about religion, society, and the inevitable departure man might have from religion if we evolve past a need for such things. And yeah, I think I didn't fully respond to that side of it. This week, I'm asking something much simpler. From the content you've put out, I can tell you really like movies and TV shows. It seems like your go-to way to blow off steam or relax after a long day is either to create or consume media in the form of TV, cinema, or reading. That's very accurate. With that said, I know you game a little bit. Yes. Snaps knows I am a gamer. You play a lot of Planet Zoo recently. What's your hour count in Planet Zoo lately, by the way? But you said you don't game that much these days. Yes, I did say when I was talking about religion that I fall out with religion about as quickly as I fall out with games. So I just opened up Discord. It's Steam. Discord doesn't know my hour count. Okay, so if I look at Steam, my activity, how do I go to it? I go to library. So Planet Zoo was the game I was most recently into, and I played last 2 weeks. I've played 0 minutes, but total I've played 28 hours. Remarkable to think about. It's not even a lot, I know, and I've also played Swords and Sandals, Civilization 3, Spore. Those are the games I've pretty much played in the last few years with any amount of seriousness. And Spore I played for 5 hours because I really like the beginning stage in Spore. I wish the whole game was that cell stage, and you can't even play it. Like, they sort of make you move on. It's kind of a poorly designed game. But I was also playing like an old version. Civilization 3 I've played 131 hours of. Civilization 3, 131 hours. That's solid. So definitely a way I've blown off steam. I did play a lot of RuneScape. I got back into RuneScape over the pandemic. Dark fucking times. When I'm getting back into RuneScape, it's dark fucking times. My question is presented thusly. Were you ever an epic gamer? Have you experienced a Halo trilogy and finished the fight? Have you saved Hyrule in The Legend of Zelda? Did you use portals in Portal? Did you have a gaming phase? Or have you always sort of been a casual consumer of video games? I'm just curious because the outward fictitious persona you've created for us seems like the kind of guy who might not even know who Master Chief is. So I'm wondering if that's just the persona or who you really are. P.S. Pro tip, do the mailbag earlier in the episode, and then you won't be flanked by a question that you didn't leave enough time to answer. That one's free. Next one's going to cost a consulting fee. Yes, you should definitely charge for that. That's a good tip. Maybe I should just devote the whole podcast to the mailbag. But no, it's a great question, Snaps. So I played Halo as a kid at friends' houses. I never owned Halo. I never had an Xbox. I did enjoy Halo. I didn't have like a game system for numerous years of my childhood. I got a PS2 at some point, like well after, I believe, PS3, probably PS4 was already out, even potentially. I think a PS4 was out, actually, yeah. But I really liked it, and I played like Crazy Taxi, and like I definitely played a shitload of games on the computer growing up. I played Civ 3. I remember playing some James Bond game like Goldfinger or something. It was like one of the only sort of shooting games I got into, and I did really dig it. There were all kinds of games I did like, so no, I did not experience the Halo trilogy in any sort of coherent way. I've never been wanting to play the campaign versions of games almost ever. Which is weird because I know that, like, I've watched some H-Bomber Guy videos and maybe some others, but like I love H-Bomber Guy, so I can get into watching his stuff about things I know nothing about. And like, I definitely have respect for like the storyline of these games. But I've never really felt drawn into it. I respect it, but I've never really felt that drawn in. I mean, it's probably somewhat similar to the fact that I don't start a bunch of shows. I don't watch a bunch of movies. Like I do consume media a lot for downtime, but probably I do more of like either creative stuff or sort of like just spinning my wheels, kind of like not thinking stuff, like playing chess, listening to a podcast, or you would think I'm thinking when I'm playing chess, but like just like stuff where I kind of turn off certain parts of my brain. I honestly do want to watch more TV and cinema. And I do, yeah, I've been reading a lot more too. Never played Legend of Zelda. So many people I know like it. Many of those games, I've, heard a lot about the lore. I think it's probably, it's legendary. Legend. I've never played it. I don't know who Hyrule is, but I'm glad someone saved them. Did I use portals in Portal? I've never played Portal. I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't picture it. I pictured like a big circle maybe. So I did definitely have gaming phases throughout my whole life. I definitely did game, but I think my parents keeping me from a game system at certain points, like I used to literally be a kid. I would have dreams where I had a Game Boy. Like I wanted a Game Boy so bad because like the dentist's office had Game Boys and shit, like friends had Game Boys. I wanted it so bad, but like, when they eventually gave in, like, I'm not going to pretend like I had like this magically developed impulse control. I was just like any other kid. Like when they did give in, I was just going to town on this shit. But yeah, I often, Lemonade Stand. Like I like strategy games. Like I definitely like, even like with RuneScape, like I never did the campaigns, never did the goals or whatever they're called, the quests. And I think they're cool and stuff. I just don't care. I don't really want to. Yeah, I didn't want to do it. I wanted to just build up my character and chop down trees, and mine ore. And at a certain point, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I've talked to some friends who have gotten into RuneScape. Like, you just reach a point where you're like, what am I doing? Like, literally, what am I doing? So that's that. What a great episode. This is actually the first episode in a really long time that I haven't even stopped recording once. Usually I go to pee, go get a coffee refill, or I like try to think of a word for 3 minutes like last episode, and I need to edit that down to 1 minute. Actually, I didn't stop recording for that. Anyways, wow, it feels really good to discuss all that news. Let me know what you thought of this like discussion we had, and I'll catch you on the other side. Thanks for listening, and thanks for being a part of the Verb Journ pod. And I hope wherever you go today and tonight, you experience your own verbal journal. Maybe that's a pretty good thing to. Oh my god, the clapping. Wow, the clapping is back. The clapping's slowing down. Holy shit, the clapping's slowing down. Oh my god, the clapping's slowing down. No! This is a podcast or something like